The blizzard was howling when I kicked open the door of the Douglas estate, my arms burning under the weight of the designer gifts I had bought. But I froze the moment I stepped inside. The living room was a sea of champagne, silk, and gold glitter, a curated set for the family Christmas card. I stepped forward, shaking off the snow, ready to join. That is when my mother's hand shot out, physically blocking me. "Oh, honey, no," she said, her smile tight. "You do not fit the aesthetic." From the sofa, my brother Eric swirled the wine I paid for, smirking. "We need winners in this frame, Reese. Maybe next year, if you look less tired. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community." I did not argue. I did not beg. The humiliation was so absolute it bypassed anger completely and settled directly into a cold, hard clarity. I simply nodded. "Okay," I said. I turned around, walked back out into the blinding snow, and loaded every single gift back into my trunk. The PlayStation 5 for my nephews, the designer handbag for my mother, the rare scotch for my father. I shut the trunk with a soft final click. Inside the car, the silence was deafening. My breath fogged the windows, turning the golden glow of the house into a blurry smear. I did not drive away immediately. I pulled out my phone. The screen was the only source of warmth in the dark cabin. I opened my banking app. I scrolled to the scheduled transfers section. It was a long list, a digital testament to my own stupidity. Mom and dad mortgage, $4,500. Eric's business loan, $2,000. Kids' private school tuition, $3,000. One by one, with freezing fingers, I hit cancel. Cancel, cancel, cancel. The little green confirmation bubbles popped up, and with each one, I felt a physical weight lift off my chest. I sat there, staring at the gray canceled status next to the tuition payment. For years, I had told myself this was love. I told myself I was the responsible one, the rock of the family. I told myself that my 60-hour work weeks and missed vacations were worth it to keep them safe. But looking at the numbers now, in the freezing cold of a rented driveway, I realized it was not love. It was a subscription fee. I had been paying a tax just to be tolerated. It is a concept I read about once but never really understood until this moment. The invisible chain of the survivor. You see, when you grow up as the scapegoat, the one who isn't the golden child, you are trained to believe your only value is your utility. You do not get a seat at the table because you exist. You get a seat because you paid for the table. You believe that if you just give enough, work hard enough, solve enough problems, eventually the transaction will turn into affection. You think you are buying love, but you are just paying rent for a space they never intended to let you own. The chain is that hope. The hope that the next check, the next rescue, the next sacrifice will be the one that makes them finally see you. Tonight, the chain broke. It did not break with a scream or a fight. It broke with the quiet realization that no amount of money would ever make me fit the aesthetic. I was not a family member to them. I was a resource. And resources do not get to be in the picture. They just pay for the frame. I looked at the house one last time. Through the window, I could see them laughing, raising their glasses. They looked perfect. They looked expensive. And they had no idea that the engine keeping their lights on had just been cut. I put the car in gear and drove away, leaving the golden lights of the estate behind in the rearview mirror. I did not cry. Tears imply loss, and I bad not lost anything. I had just stopped paying for something I never had. The next morning, the silence broke. My phone did not just ring. It vibrated with the frantic energy of a hive kicked over. The notifications stacked up on my lock screen like a wall of panic. They were not apologies. They were not asking if I got home safe in the storm. They were alerts that the ATM was broken. Eric's text came first. "Are you insane? The tuition check bounces today. Do you want your nephews kicked out of school? Fix this now." Then Susan. "You ruined the vibe last night with your attitude, and now you are punishing us financially? This is petty, Reese. Grow up and turn the transfers back on." I read them while drinking coffee in my quiet, modest kitchen. The sun was shining on the snow outside, bright and clean. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like I was reading messages meant for someone else, someone who cared. I did not reply. I archived the threads. An hour later, a different text came through. It was from Jenna, Eric's wife. My quiet, exhausted sister-in-law, who usually faded into the background of Eric's ego. Meet me at the diner on 4th. Don't tell Eric. I stared at it. I expected a guilt trip. I expected her to be the flying monkey, sent to plead Eric's case because he was too proud to beg himself. I went. The diner was empty, smelling of old grease and coffee. Jenna was sitting in a back booth, wrapped in a coat that looked 3 seasons old. She looked tired, not the aesthetic tired my mother mocked, but deep, soul-weary tired. When I sat down, she did not say hello. She did not ask how I was. She simply reached into her oversized bag and slid a thick manila envelope across the table. Her hands were shaking so hard, the paper rattled against the formica. I found these in Eric's home office, she whispered, her voice tight. I was looking for our tax documents because the IRS sent a notice. He keeps the drawer locked, but he left the key in his jacket. I looked at the envelope, then at her. Jenna, if this is about the tuition money, I can't. Open it, she said. Her eyes were red, rimmed with dark circles. It is not about what you think, it is about what you do not know. I hesitated, my finger under the flap of the envelope. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew the extent of their greed, their entitlement. I thought I had mapped out the entire landscape of their selfishness. I was wrong. I tore the envelope open and pulled out a stack of papers. The first thing I saw was a letterhead I did not recognize. It was not from the prestigious private academy Eric claimed the boys attended. It was from the local public school district. I stared at the document, the words swimming for a second before snapping into focus. Student enrollment confirmation. Date, August, 2 years ago. I looked up at Jenna. They are in public school? For 2 years, she said, tears finally spilling over. Eric told me he was handling the tuition payments directly with your help. He told me the private school was taken care of. But I found report cards, field trip permission slips, all from the district public school. I felt a cold numbness spread through my fingers. I have been sending $3,000 a month for tuition. Every month. For 2 years. Look at the next page, Jenna said, wiping her face roughly. I shuffled the papers. Underneath the school letters was a lease agreement. It was printed on glossy paper, the logo of a luxury car dealership embossed at the top. It was a lease for a Range Rover Sport. The date on the signature line was 2 weeks ago. The monthly payment was exactly, to the penny, $3,000. I put the paper down. The diner sounds, the clinking of silverware, the hum of the refrigerator, seemed to fade away. It was not just waste. It was not just bad money management. It was theft. Eric Bad not just taken my money to live a little better. He had stolen from his own children's education. He had looked me in the eye, talked about the boys' bright future at the academy, and then taken that money to lease a status symbol so he could drive around town looking like the success he pretended to be. I drove home with the envelope, burning a hole in the passenger seat. My anger had transformed. It was no longer the hot, reactive anger of the night before. It was something colder, something analytical. I thought about Eric. I thought about the way he sat in that center chair last night, swirling his wine. The golden child. You see, there is a specific delusion of power that comes with an empty wallet when you have never been told no. It is the psychology of the golden child. Eric does not see himself as a thief. In his mind, he isn't stealing. He truly believes that the luxury car, the image, the facade, it is his birthright. He believes he is the face of the family, the protagonist of the movie. And me, the sister who works 60 hours a week? I am just the back-end support staff. I am the crew. My money isn't mine. It is a resource allocated to the star of the show. He did not lease that car to drive it. He leased it to validate a delusion. He needs the car to prove he is successful because, without the props, he is just a man who cannot pay his own rent. He views my contribution not as a gift to be grateful for, but as a tribute he is owed. That is why he was not ashamed. That is why he could smirk at me while I stood in the snow. In his world, the producer does not get to be in the shot with the talent. I parked my car. He wanted to be the star? Fine, I was about to give him the spotlight he deserved. By the time I walked through my front door, my phone was vibrating against the kitchen counter where I had left it. It was not a text message this time. It was a relentless stream of notifications from Facebook. Eric had posted. Of course he had. I should have predicted it. When a narcissist senses the walls closing in, when the financial lifeline is cut and the reality of their failure is about to become public, they do not reflect. They do not apologize. They attempt to control the narrative before the truth has a chance to breathe. I poured a glass of tap water, leaned against the counter, and opened the app. There it was, right at the top of my feed. The perfect Christmas photo from last night. The champagne outfits, the gold drapes, the winning smiles of my parents and brother. My nephews looked adorable in their matching beige vests. And there was the empty space where I had tried to stand. Below it, the caption was long enough to be a press release. Heartbroken this holiday season. It is sad when money changes people. My sister Reese decided to abandon her family during the holidays, leaving her nephews without their aunt, all because she is jealous of the happiness I have with my beautiful wife and kids. Success is lonely when you do not have love, Reese. We are praying for you to find peace and stop punishing us for your own unhappiness. I read it twice. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. He was not just lying, he was projecting. He took his own financial dependency and reframed it as my punishment. He took my exclusion, an act they committed, and reframed it as my abandonment. He knew exactly what buttons to push in our social circle. He played the devoted father card, the concerned brother card, and the religious high ground card all in one paragraph. He was painting me as the bitter, lonely spinster, the rich, cold aunt who withheld love because she could not have what he had. The likes were already rolling in. The comments were even worse. They were from our cousins, from family friends, from people at their country club I hadn't seen in years. So sad. You guys look amazing though. Praying for her. Jealousy is an ugly disease. Keep your head up, Eric. You are a great dad. Money cannot buy class. I felt a phantom ache in my chest, the ghost of the old Reese trying to break through. The old Reese, the one bound by that invisible chain, would be hyperventilating right now. She would have hidden in her bedroom. She would have called him, begging him to take it down, apologizing for whatever he thought she did, just to make the public shaming stop. She would have sent the check just to buy his silence, terrified that people might think she was mean. But that Reese was gone. She stayed back in the snow at the Douglas estate. I looked at the screen, analyzing the engagement metrics. He was getting sympathy. He was building a fortress of public opinion to protect himself from the inevitable crash. He wanted to make sure that when the repo man came for the Range Rover, everyone would blame me for ruining his life. I looked at the manila envelope on the counter. I looked at the scanner on my desk. He wanted to talk about money? He wanted to talk about happiness? He had invited the audience to his pity party. He had set the stage, turned on the spotlight, and handed out the programs. I did not write a long defense. I did not argue with the commenters. I did not engage in an emotional battle he had already rigged. I simply treated his post like a project discrepancy report. The data was incorrect. I needed to attach the supporting documentation. I walked over to my desk and turned on the scanner. The hum of the machine was the only sound in the apartment. It sounded like justice. I scanned 2 documents. First, the letter from the public school district, clearly stating the enrollment dates of my nephews, dates that went back 2 full years. I highlighted the date in bright yellow digital marker. Second, the lease agreement for the Range Rover Sport. I highlighted the date, 2 weeks ago, and the monthly payment amount. I highlighted the signature, Eric Douglas. I uploaded both images as a single comment directly under his tear-jerking post. My hands did not shake. My heart did not race. It felt like filing a tax return. Just facts. Just data. I typed a caption, brief, factual, devastating. Jealousy did not buy the Range Rover, Eric. My tuition checks did. Enjoy the public school system. I hear it is free. I hit enter. Then I turned off my phone. I poured myself a glass of wine, a cheap bottle I bought for myself, not the vintage stuff I bought for them, and sat by the window. I did not need to see what happened next. The explosion would be silent at first. People would read it, they would zoom in on the documents, they would do the math, They would see the timestamp on the lease. They would see the public school header. The narrative would not just shift, it would snap. The golden child facade only works as long as the audience believes the gold is real. Eric had just shown everyone it was painted plastic. He had invited the audience to his pity party, and I had just turned on the lights. I did not block them. I did not need to. I wanted them to see that I was online. I wanted them to see that I saw it all. The notifications on my laptop started to ding. Not text messages this time. Facebook notifications, comments, likes on my comment. Wait, he leased a Range Rover with tuition money? Is this real? Eric, you told us the boys were at Street Jude's. Oh my God, the social circle was turning. The judgment he tried to weaponize against me was boomeranging back with lethal velocity. I took a sip of wine. It tasted better than anything I had ever drunk at their table. The aftermath was not a battle. It was a demolition. Without my funding, the house of cards did not just wobble. It disintegrated. The image Douglas and Susan had tried so hard to protect was shattered not by my anger, but by the undeniable math of their son's fraud. Their friends did not pity them, they whispered about them. The shame of the public exposure, the fact that everyone knew their wealth was leased on my credit, was far worse for them than the poverty. They were forced to break the lease on the estate. They moved into a small, 2-bedroom condo on the edge of town. No gold drapes, no champagne aesthetic, just the beige reality they could actually afford on a pension. Jenna filed for divorce 3 weeks later. She used the evidence I provided, the financial infidelity, the theft from the children's education fund, to secure full custody. She did not ask for alimony. She knew there was no money to get. She just wanted out. 1 year later, I opened the door to my own home. It was not a mansion. It was a messy, warm, chaotic house filled with the smell of burning sugar and pine needles. Aunt Reese! The roof collapsed. My nephew ran into the hallway, covered in green frosting. Jenna was laughing in the kitchen, trying to glue a gingerbread house back together with icing that was far too runny. We need structural engineers in here, I called out, dropping my keys and kicking off my boots. There was no color coordination. The tree was a mismatched disaster of handmade ornaments, colored lights that blinked too fast, and tinsel that the cat had already tried to eat. We were wearing pajamas at 2 in the afternoon. It was perfect. I walked into the kitchen and hugged Jenna. She looked younger, lighter. The deep, dark exhaustion was gone from her eyes. Thanks for having us, she said, wiping icing off her cheek. Always, I replied. I watched the boys attack the gingerbread ruins, debating whether the gumdrops were load-bearing walls. They did not know about the Range Rover. They did not know about the tuition scandal. They just knew their mom was happy and their aunt was here. I thought about the money I used to send, the tax I paid to be tolerated. I did not keep the money I saved this year. I did not buy a sports car or a mansion to prove a point. I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a thin blue file. Inside were the papers for 2 529 college savings plans, one for each nephew. I controlled the accounts. Eric could not touch them. My parents did not even know they existed. This is the justice of the sower. Revenge is not just about burning down the weeds. It is about watering the right seeds. I stopped funding the parasite so I could nurture the future. I took the resources back from the people who used them to build facades, and I invested them in the people who would use them to build lives. I looked at my nephews, laughing, safe, and loved. This was the only aesthetic that mattered.